Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Europa Rediviva. Today is the birthday of America, one quarter of a millennium of history, and I wish them the traditional "May this end soon." So, the United States is the biggest problem the second biggest problem of mankind, but it's illegal to name the first. So, I can't wait for the world to be a better place with the US statehood finally abolished. It's a state built on genocide. Half of its territory is stolen from Mexico. They didn't even change the toponymy. The names of the states on the southwestern in the southwestern part of the United States, and of most of the towns there are still Spanish. But of course, this is not the history that Hollywood teaches us, so this is not something that people actually know. The collective West was brought up into this illusion that the United States is this country that fights for freedom, that was built on freedom, blah, blah, blah. It was built on slave owning. So if you want to look at an empire that was built on freedom and emancipation, that's the Spanish Empire, disregarding the black legend and all of those things that the Protestant countries created as propaganda for centuries against the Spanish Empire. There was no slavery in the Spanish Empire. There was mestizaje. There was racial mixing from the start, and all of the people living in the Spanish Empire were equal. The Spaniards built hospitals, universities in the New World, whereas the Americans just genocided the natives and brought in slaves from Africa to do the work for them. It's a country that is kind of a shame on human history, and I hope it will end soon. Of course, what I'm saying is not in consonance with what the political class in Romania is saying and the media, because it has been successfully captured by the United States through this process going on for decades, ever since the coup d'etat in 1989. And so the whole media space is owned by the United States or funded by the United States, and is operated by all sorts of lowlifes who are not smart enough to understand what they're doing, or they're not they're not brave enough or competent enough to do anything else. So there are people who understand what's going on, but who still play the game because this is the only game they know. But the majority of the people are just lowlives, and the media operatives are just lackeys of the United States. And the same happens with the political class. There's nothing to say there. There are no sovereigntists in the real sense of the word. They're only lackeys of the United States, or wannabe lackeys of the United States. And Romania is a society that is completely captured. I'd like to do this episode about what America did for us, because now there's this competition praising the United States, praising the noble values, the glorious effort of the United States to civilize us and to liberate us from ourselves, and especially from our riches and from our state budget and from our national history. So the United States stepped in with its agents in the 1989 revolution, so-called revolution, even though the majority of the operatives, I'm still of the opinion that the majority of the operatives, especially those from the army, were Soviet agents, but the Soviet Union was already in the process of being captured and dismembered by the United States. So it didn't make much difference. It's not like those Soviet agents in the Romanian army who had any vision accomplished. The Warsaw Pact dismembered, the Soviet Union dismembered, so whatever they were fighting for during the coup d'etat in 1989 did not materialize. What materialized was the vision of the agents of the CIA, of the MI6, of the Western European intelligence services, of Mossad, And Romania eventually entered the orbit of the United States. These agents climbed their way to the higher echelons of power and were helped by this mechanism that was established to control the judicial system and to essentially, well, send to jail or kick out of politics any person that is somehow deemed unfavorable by the United States. There are many examples. I can do a video for hours on end with all the people that were taken out of politics because they opposed some part or another part of the American agenda. And this is still going on. So right now Romania has a pro-European government, which I do not support because it's a government of austerity. It's a government of enslavement to Western European corporations. But still, I respect the process. I respect the idea of due process. And right now the pro-American part of the Romanian political class is purging the pro-European part through the means of lawfare. As I said in the previous video, there are all of these show trials and kangaroo investigations against people who would be connected to the pro-European part so as to force them to vote a pro-American government and to rob the state coffers to the benefit of American corporations and not of European ones. This is the name of the game right now. This is the game that is played. And there's this process of lawfare. The United States captured the Romanian media, and the United States captured the Romanian secret services, which in turn have their operatives in the judicial system. So how it works is that they need to get to somebody. I can give historical examples. I can also give a current example, what's going on against the current interim prime minister. But this is an ongoing case, so I don't have that much information on it. What they're doing now is they're trying to orchestrate this Auschwitz-type imaginary scenario in which thousands of people were abused and, well, they don't say they were killed, but they somehow allude to the fact that they were somehow mass murdered and buried in common graves. And whenever they employ this type of scenario, it's against a very high up political figure. So last time they did it against the previous mayor of Bucharest, who was trying to run and to, well, steal the victory from the candidate of the security apparatus, which later became the current president. So this type of hospices from hell scenario was employed with all sorts of allegations that those people were begging naked behind bars in winter, sexual abuses, and yeah, all sorts of things from the imaginary toolbox of the Holocaust, so as to completely destroy the image of that political figure. In that case, it was the previous mayor of Bucharest, Gabriela Vânceanu-Firea, and now they're trying to get to Ilie Bolojan, the current prime minister, by somehow alluding to the fact that he must have known what was going on in his county when he was the president of the county council. Just like through lawfare, they managed to imprison Liviu Dragnea, who was the head of the Social Democrats until 2019. The Social Democrats were in power, they won the elections, and they were trying to govern, but the Americans were trying to prevent Liviu Dragnea from becoming prime minister, because he wanted, among other things, to repatriate the gold reserves of the Romanian National Bank, and, well, to do all sorts of things which are not in line with the plans of the United States for Romania. So as a consequence of this, they orchestrated this case that some misdeeds were going on in Telorman County, and because he was the president of the county council, he should have known, although nothing tied the case to him directly, but he was imprisoned. And they're trying to do something similar with Ilie Bolojan, because he must have known, right? I mean, to have Auschwitz in your county for 20 years and not do anything about it. So they're trying to basically set up a criminal case against him, so as to rob the state coffers, not in the benefit of Rheinmetall, as is currently the case, but to the benefit of all sorts of American corporations which deliver nothing, but which have the political power right now through the president of Romania. And there are some historical examples. For example, in 2004, the Romanian Prime Minister became Călin Popescu-Tăriceanu. And he became a political target because he wanted to pull the Romanian troops out of Iraq. There was that illegal war toppling Iraq, toppling the Iraqi regime, and Romania participated because, well, Romania participates in every illegal operation of its masters. And Călin Popescu-Tăriceanu, for unknown reasons, wanted to disobey a bit, wanted to give the Romanian nation some dignity and to pull out the troops from Iraq. And as a consequence of this, several things were orchestrated, but among them was the fact that he became the target of this legal case involving the grandson of Romania's second to last king. So basically a nephew of Romania's last king, who demanded some part of the estate of his grandfather, and he was entitled to it, and he received it. And well, because one of the people to whom he sold that part of the estate was an advisor to Călin Popescu-Tăriceanu, they were trying to somehow get to him and to frame him as well, and this is why they started this whole criminal investigation based on nothing. And yeah, this is how the system operates. And in order for it to function successfully, civics are not taught in school, so the majority of the Romanian population has only a theoretical understanding of how the justice system works, has a theoretical idea of the fact that there is such a thing as a presumption of innocence, the premise of innocence, and because the majority of the population doesn't know that actually when you start a criminal investigation, you have to prove that the person is guilty. The people that are targeted, that are politically targeted, are first convicted in the court of public opinion with the help of the media that is owned and run by the United States and at the interests of the United States, does this character assassination of people, of political targets. And it's not hard to see it. I mean, it does it with established politicians, but it also does it with civic activists that may try to enter politics at some future time. So the Romanian media landscape is so shameless that it is now running hit pieces and character assassination pieces on all sorts of people that are not politically involved even. They just take a stand, like I do, against what's going on. And they become politically assassinated in these hit pieces in the media, framed with all sorts of things and smeared with all sorts of accusations, so that finally, when the prosecutor receives the order to create some sort of criminal file against that person, the public opinion will have already been convinced that the person is guilty. Guilty of having a bad character, of course. I mean, the criminal deed itself is not important. What is important is that the media successfully targeted that person for some time, and so there is a reasonable expectation on behalf of the public that that person needs to be sent to prison because it is a danger to the public order. And whereas I was observing this mechanism a few years ago happening to people that I did not know, that are just, well, regular politicians from mainstream parties, or used to be, because the Lawfare process has successfully taken them out. Now I see this being orchestrated against people I actually know. So people who just write on Facebook, people who write their opinions and who say that it's not okay to destroy Romania in this way, and that it's not okay to be so subservient to Western interests and to kill ourselves completely and to not have any more autonomy, And well, to liquidate the state coffers and to build up this huge debt on corrupt procurement contracts for our foreign masters and so on. And these people who do the same as I do, just write on Facebook, they write on social media that it's not okay because they have some following. They are targeted by these smear campaigns and hit pieces, even though they're not even politicians. They're not. They do not have access to state resources. It's not like the media does its role of guard dog, because those people are not mishandling any kind of public money. They're just out in the public space saying things like I do. And on their own time, on their own money, on their own resources, without being paid by through any public funds, be them domestic or foreign, as opposed to the media, which is paid by the government and which is paid by foreign governments. So essentially how this goes is that the foreign government in question, in this case the United States, gives these grants through all these foundations that the United States government operates. Freedom House, Aspen, the German Marshall Fund of the United States, USAID, the International Republican Institute, the National Democratic Institute, the National Endowment for Democracy, and so on and so forth. And there is unequal competition because these media organizations that receive this kind of funding from the United States to push the American agenda prosper, and they can afford to pay high salaries, to attract the biggest lowlifes, the most ruthless and and spineless people from the media landscape. And these grants also go to people from other parts of Romanian society. They go to prosecutors, they go to judges in these vetting programs or in these capacity building programs and so on and so forth. And there's this network built up that collaborates. The media collaborates with the corrupt justice system to prop up certain judges, to prop up the careers of certain judges, and to smear others, to smear the ones that are honest and that do their job without receiving orders from the United States Embassy. And in this way, they managed to advance to the top of the Romanian society, a corrupt political class that is blackmailed by the United States, or that are just opportunists and that receive orders from the US Embassy. Judges that are blackmailed with because they have all sorts of they do all sorts of criminal things on the side, and they are blackmailable, or they are just opportunists who receive kickbacks from these U.S. grants. And there's this whole media landscape. The journalists who are trying to do their job right are smeared with all sorts of things, and criminal cases are built against them, and they're finally removed from their profession. And so you have this selection process. And as decades pass, the society in question, in this case the Romanian society, is more and more captured until it is now totally captured. So the current president of Romania used to be the lackey of the US Embassy and of the US ambassadors. He received the direct orders from the US ambassadors, and he even advertised it in the media that he was doing that. When he became mayor with orders from the US ambassador to liquidate the municipal companies, because Bucharest should not have its in-house services. It should outsource everything. And there were probably some kickbacks involved with American companies, I don't know. But there were these articles in the mainstream media praising him for being the candidate that would liquidate the municipal companies that were built by the Social Democrats. And the US ambassador was praising him, and he was insulting the Social Democrats to be robber barons and to be the Red Plague and corrupt and so on. And so he was the stooge of the US Embassy. He was running for mayor as the stooge of the US Embassy. And he was also supported in his bid for the presidency by this association of former US ambassadors who remained in Romania, to advance the interests of various American investment funds, to serve as lobbyists for American corporate interests. And they not only supported him openly and said that he has the backing of the United States, but they also contacted other candidates, so his rivals, his competitors, to convince them to withdraw their candidacies. So if this is not state interference, I don't know what is. But in the end, the candidate that was disallowed from running was the guy who allegedly had been sponsored by Russia, even though no link was ever proven. But the fact that France meddled itself in the political process with the Constitutional Court and with the secret services by awarding state awards to these institutions, and by openly backing the candidates of Renew Europe. Macron openly filmed these videos of himself backing the candidates of Renew Europe. And the US Embassy did the same with Nikushodan. And this was not seen as interference. No, the only interference was from Russia, which was invisible, which could not be documented to this day. And this is why the candidate that was not supported either by France or by the United States had to be disqualified. So Romania is a country that is completely captured by the United States, and this is why the justice system doesn't work. The media landscape is just an assassination machine against any kind of person that does not bow to the interests of the United States. And this is why public life, in my opinion, is no longer possible. So if I emigrated in my, right after my teenage years, if I emigrated in search of better opportunities, better professional opportunities, better educational opportunities, now I had to emigrate for different reasons. I had to emigrate because all the people I know are targets of this propaganda machine, and the propaganda machine is closely followed by the lawfare mechanism. And if I were to stay in Romania, I'd probably be a target. The Romanians would find out about me that I'm this horrible person from these articles in the mainstream media. There would be character assassination done against me, and finally some lawfare operations, because this is how things function. Because unfortunately I am rather popular in Romania, so whenever I start a Facebook account, I reach monetization threshold in the first week. My posts are viral enough that I get a reach of hundreds of thousands in a few days. And this is what can easily turn me into a target, which it actually did. So this is why I'm on all of these blacklists, on these hit websites, and I am basically shown that if I involve myself in politics, I will share the fate of all of these sovereignist leaders that I mentioned, even before reaching power. So the lawfare mechanism does not even allow you to stand as a political competitor anymore. If 10 years ago somebody like Liviu Dragnea or somebody like Ponta, the leaders of the Social Democratic Party back when it was a sovereigntist party, were the target of these lawfare operations while they were holding power, now the mechanism even prevents people from running for office, like in the case of Călin Georgescu, and I think also like in the case of these friends of mine that are delusional enough to think of running for office, even though they are the target of these smear campaigns all the time. They are the target of these smear campaigns. They're called traitors by the media. They are called in the service. They are labeled as being in the service of Russia and so on. And it's not hard to understand that if they actually try to run for office, they will have some sort of fake criminal cases launched against them, and they will be arrested, and they will be sent to jail. And not only that, but also their image will be destroyed. So it's not like they will be seen as martyrs by the majority of the Romanians. No, the majority of the Romanians will believe that made-up image. Some outrageous, also maybe Holocaust-inspired imagery about them will be concocted, like it is about these other people who are political targets. And they will be framed in such a way that they will never be able to clean up their image afterwards. It's not like they will be accused of something and nobody will believe it. No, the media apparatus is vicious enough that it will manufacture some bullshit that will also destroy their character, not only their freedom. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say for America's birthday. Fuck you, America.